Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 1. Now the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is David not hiding in the hill of Hekeliah, opposite Jeshimon?" So here we see the second time the Ziphites have come to Saul as he is at his palace in Gibeah and saying, "Hey, is David not hiding here? Like, we're trying to ingratiate ourselves to you. We're trying to rise up and be seen good in your sight. So is David not hiding in that hill?" We saw the first time the Ziphites came to Saul. Saul chased David. He had him cornered, and then the Philistines attacked. Now, with the Philistines repelled, David has spared Saul's life. But now some time has passed. And now the Ziphites come back to Saul, reminding him, "Hey, that enemy of yours, that David, he's still hiding in the hills of Hekeliah. So why don't you try to use us and go get your enemy? Then your mind could be at ease. You could be at peace, and we could have a greater position in your kingdom." Because that's the way everyone always thought back then, about how to ingratiate themselves to the leaders. That way they could be greater in the eyes of the leaders. Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul encamped in the hill of Hekeliah, which is opposite Jeshimon by the road. But David stayed in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul had indeed come. So he hears word, he sees Saul's forces coming in, comes with 3,000 soldiers to weed out David and his 600. They come into the wilderness of Ziph. He's encamping in Hekeliah in the hills. David's going to stay out in the wilderness. He's going to stay hidden. But he sends out spies, and now he knows it is definitely Saul. It is not just his men, but Saul himself has once again come to seek his life. After all that talk of David, my son, you are so much better than me. You have this heart for God and forgiveness in his way that I don't have, and blessed are you. But now, not so much. Now, the voice of that spirit sniping in Saul's ear, the words of the people themselves sniping in his ear, telling them to go up and take revenge against David, to take revenge for his people, to take revenge for his household, a revenge of something that never even happened. David never once set foot in a way to wound or take from Saul. But this is what happens when we listen to people and allow them to gain our ear. We take their advice, and it leads us to doing things we shouldn't be doing. We sometimes will fall astray. We will wander off the narrow path that we are in because we're listening to chirping. And you know what sometimes will happen is we'll chirp at each other in each other's ears. We'll join it, and it will become this circular argument of chirping. It'll be this thing that kind of grows like wildfire in a way that is uncontrollable and that we're not even seeking to do, and will pull our emotions apart and pull us in wrong paths. It's why we're warned not to gossip. Now, gossip for some people has a very strict definition. For others, it has a very broad definition. Both are probably incorrect. But take this, for instance. Your children are playing Little League baseball. Kids are having fun. Sometimes they're getting a little frustrated at some of the calls. You as a parent are going to get frustrated because you want your child not just to play their best, but you want them to get the most out of the experience. And disappointment and resentment at an official who is doing their best most of the time So you don't want your kids to have that negative experience, that negative feeling. So you start to get angry. But you're a good Christian. You're not going to be one of those crazy people cursing and screaming at umpires and tackling them. But then after the game, you and some of the other parents from the team, you start chirping about those umpires. You start chirping about those officials at the football game, at the soccer match, at the basketball game, whatever it is. And you start chirping about those umpires. Now, the parent you're talking to might have been a little annoyed. Maybe another parent in that group didn't see anything wrong at all. But now all three of you are working yourselves up, becoming angrier and angrier, letting those chirps get to you, letting those little seeds of anger sprout, those little seeds of not distress, but discontentment is a better word. Those little seeds of discontentment with that experience and the experience that you are now projecting onto your child, now starting to grow and starting to sprout into some anger. Some legitimate anger that you didn't even have during the game. But now 2 days later, a week later, whatever it is, now all of a sudden you're really angry about something you weren't even angry about when it happened. And this is the experience of Saul. He's listening to the distressing spirit whispering in his head that someone is coming for your throne. Someone is coming for your throne. David's coming for your throne. And when David spares his life, he sees the light for a moment that David's not trying to kill me. David's not doing these things. None of this is happening. So he goes out in peace. But then the chirping starts to begin with some of the other people. Hey, that enemy of yours, David, he's out by us. He's out by us. Have you not noticed that he's out by us? You can eliminate the threat now. You could end the problem you've been having right now if only you come out and take care of it now. Walking away from the will of God. Which, don't let it be mistaken, for all of the judgment that has been passed on Saul, as I've said before, he's not out of the realm of being reconciled to God if he would just turn to him. But he doesn't. Because he listens to the voice. He listens to the chirps. He listens to those who are going to pull him from a good, godly, righteous walk with seeds of discontentment. And David himself wrote about this in Psalm 54. It's a maskil he wrote when the Ziphites went and told Saul, "Is David not among us?" Now this one might have been written the first time the Ziphites went to him or this time. But I'm going to cover it this time because it's short, so we can just read through these 7 verses. O God, save me by your name and vindicate me by your might. O God, hear my prayer. Give ear to the words of my mouth. For strangers have risen up against me. And that strangers is insolent men, is what lots of other manuscripts kind of state. Ruthless men seek my life. They do not set God before themselves. Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life. He will return the evil to my enemies. In your faithfulness, put an end to them. With a freewill offering, I will sacrifice to you. I will give thanks to your name, O Lord, for it is good. For he has delivered me from every trouble, and my eye has looked in triumph on my enemies. At each stage, David has the chance to turn away from him, to turn and look to God and say, God, why are you causing this to happen? God, why are you doing this? God, why are you allowing this to happen in my life? But each time he looks to God. But with every instance, Saul looks to his base nature. And David will cry out, Lord, these insolent men keep sowing these seeds of discontentment. Lord, deliver me from them. Deliver me from their evil. Deliver me from their wickedness. Deliver me from the vile distrust that they are spreading throughout the land. And David's going to deal with this his entire life. Even when he's a beloved king, he becomes a not so beloved king because of seeds of discontentment being sown against him. Just know when people come to us like the Ziphites with those seeds of discontentment, to let them roll off of us, to not take root. Because so often, whether we like to believe it or not, we will be the ones sowing the seeds of discontentment, even if we don't mean to. I know I've done it myself. Probably often when it comes to watching my children do sports or dance or things like that. That is level-headed as I try to be, that I'll still allow seeds of discontentment to take root in me, or I will launch those seeds at other people. And we need to be careful. Because as Jesus said, it's not what goes into the mouth of a man that defiles him, but what comes out. And when I personally am speaking seeds of discontentment, I am defiling myself. And I'm defiling the witness I'm to have before Christ, before people in the name of Christ. I'm doing that because I've allowed something to take root that should never have been there. We need to make sure we remove that tear and leave only the good, healthy weed of Jesus inside. That Holy Spirit, and allow the light, the purifying light of God, to burn that away. So David arose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, and Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of the army. Now that's just a funny name because Abner, the son of Ner, literally just means, basically, my father is Ner. That's what Abner's name actually means. So saying my father is Ner, the son of Ner, it's kind of redundant. But so David arose. He gets the reports from his spies. He knows where Saul is camped, and David arises and goes to that place. He can oversee it. He sees Saul. He sees Abner. Now, Saul lay within the camp with the people encamped all around them. Basically, they would dig out it would basically make it almost like a trench, so that Saul is laying in the middle of all of these soldiers. Then David answered and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul in the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with you. Now Abishai is David's nephew. This is his sister's son. Zeruiah is David's sister. We heard about his brothers all this time. This is his sister. This is the brother, or the son of his sister, Joab, who will be spoken of all the way into the reign of Solomon as one of David's great mighty men and generals, sometimes reluctantly so on David's part, not Joab's. That these two are actually brothers, with another one who is Aziel, that they will be these three brothers who will be among David's mighty men. And so his nephew is saying, I will absolutely go down with you, uncle, because he wants to see his uncle brought in to his place of glory. He wants to see his uncle brought into a place of power, in a place of right standing before God. He wants to see him named the king. So he will do whatever needs to be done for him to get to that place of making David king. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and there Saul lay sleeping within the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head, and Abner and the people lay all around him. Then Abishai said to David, God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore, please let me strike him at once with the spear, right to the earth, and I will not have to strike him a second time. So this is an interesting thing. David and Abishai, just the two of them, sneak into the camp, sneak through all these people. And there is Saul with his familiar spear sticking out that we've seen play a part so often. As he's chucked it at David, he's chucked it at Jonathan. And here he is with Abner, the man meant to protect him. And they're all out like a light sleeping. David and Abishai standing over the king. Once again, David with the temptation to end this now and take the throne for himself. He has the temptation before him to just put an end to the oppression of Saul, the oppression he has personally had and the people have had, to end it once and for all. But Abishai, knowing what David had said in the past, that he will not reach his hand out against the anointed of God, says to David, God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. God has led us here. We snuck through all these people undetected. 3,000 fighting men. And us two have snuck through all the way to them. We're good, David, but we ain't that good. We've gotten all the way here. This is God's deliverance of bringing Saul into your hand. And I know what you feel. I know you won't stretch your hand out against the Lord's anointed. But me, on the other hand, let me strike him at once with the spear. Let me pull his own spear out of the ground. And I will not need a second strike. I will pin it through his heart directly into the earth. I will pin him to the ground. And the threat of Saul will be over once and for all. That's a temptation. To have your problem set before you on a silver platter, the solution to it, brought to your hands at a silver platter, set out before you. It's easy to see the providence of God in that. And then for somebody to say, you don't even have to get your hands dirty. I'll do it for you. This problem you have, I will handle it. I will take care of it, and it will be gone forever. That is a special kind of temptation. A temptation to be delivered from the oppression in front of you, from whatever is hurting you, from whatever is breaking you, to have that removed forever. And you don't have to lift a finger. But in this case, the Lord's anointed will still be struck down at David's command. And that's something David can't handle. That's still something David won't do. Because although this is not David doing the striking, it will be at his word. And the deed will be done as if just done by his own hand. Trying to use someone else to do your dirty work does not absolve you of the guilt of doing the dirty work in the first place. That's not the way this happens. You have a choice to make of whether to give in to that really tempting sin, that tempting solution that seems good, but you know in your heart of hearts that it is not godly. Therefore, it is not something to do. It is not something you can affirm and give your blessing to. But David said to Abishai, do not destroy him, for who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? So David's saying, no, not even you. It's not just me. But no one can stretch out their hand against God's anointed and be held guiltless before God, is the implication. To be held guiltless before God. And that's the one we should be worried about the most. About being seen guiltless before God. David said furthermore, as the Lord lives, the Lord shall strike him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please now take the spear and the jug of water that are behind his head, or by his head, and let us go. So David's affirming, as the Lord lives, as long as our Lord exists, the Lord shall be the one to strike him down. His day shall come to die, or he'll just die of old age, or natural causes, or he's going to go out to battle and perish. The Lord's hand will be in that, not mine. The Lord will remove that decision from my hand. That's the faith David has in the promises of God. So David took the spear and the jug of water by Saul's head, and they got away. And no man saw or knew it or awoke, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. So it's saying with Abishai, the Lord has delivered us, and he's delivered Saul into your hand. We only got here because of the Lord. And Scripture's recording, that is true. They only got there and away because the Lord had placed a deep sleep on these people to allow David to go there. To allow David to break into their camp, get to the side of Saul, and deal with the temptation that was before him. Every step David's being taken through is one more showing him how he is going to have to be as king. And showing us reading and studying why exactly God calls David a man after his own heart. Because he will not do anything counter to the will of God. What he believes God has willed for his life. Now, does he fall and stumble and sin? Yes. But he doesn't directly try to go against what he believes God has called him to. Sometimes when we commit sin, we don't view ourselves as doing something in opposition to what God called us. We see our sin as being something that is a failing, but not something as us thumbing our nose at God. And in a way, there are sins that do fall under that we're not directly trying to be sinful before God. We're just failing to live up to what he has called us to. Other times, there are sins where we directly are being in complete and utter rebellion to the Lord. Now David went over to the other side and stood on the top of the mountain, Now David went over to the other side and stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great distance being between them. And David called out to the people and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, "Do you not answer, Abner?" Then Abner answered and said, "Who are you calling out to the king?" So David gets himself far away, standing on a hilltop afar off so that they're out of distance of being attacked, but close enough so that he'd hear, his voice would carry to them. And now with the supernatural sleep of God removed from them, David calls out from that distance, and Abner awakes and responds. Not but a few minutes before, David and Abishai were speaking over the body of Abner. Couldn't be aroused. But now from far off, you can see how alert Abner truly is. And how alert he would have been had God not placed him under a deep sleep. So David said to Abner, "Are you not a man? And who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? For one of the people came in to destroy your lord the king." So David throwing accusations at Abner. Are you not a man? And it's more like, are you not basically the man? Are you not the mighty man in Israel? Are you not the valiant leader? Are you not the general? Are you not the champion of Israel in a way? For who is like you in all of Israel? Who is so battle-hardened and ready and respected as you? But then he throws out the accusation of, if you're this great, powerful man, this mighty warrior, why have you not guarded your king? Why haven't you guarded him? For someone came into the camp to destroy the Lord, to destroy your Lord the king. And that is not even a lie. Because Abishai was ready to slay Saul with the slightest nod of the head from David. There was most certainly one person in that camp who would have slayed Saul without a second thought. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, you deserve to die because you have not guarded your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is and the jug of water that was by his head. So now where's that jug of water? Where's that spear? And I'm sure they turn around to look and go, uh-oh, whoever's screaming this out isn't lying. Somebody was here. Somebody easily could have slayed Saul. Then Saul knew David's voice and said, "Is that your voice, my son David?" David said, "It is my voice, my lord, O king." Is it your voice, my son David? Still trying to refer to him as his son, as his son-in-law. He did this the first time, and David left in peace. Now it's a little bit less being accepted by David, because he said, "My father," first time. Now it's just "my Lord, my king." Not referring to him as his father, his father-in-law, nothing of that level of respect now. Because he said there was going to be peace between them, and it wasn't kept. He's come after his life again. And he said, "Why does my Lord thus pursue his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand? Now therefore, please let my Lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. But if it is the children of men, may they be cursed before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day from sharing the inheritance of the Lord, saying, 'Go serve other gods.'" "Saul, why are you coming after me? What have I done to you? We went through this. You said I was innocent in your eyes, that you knew I didn't do anything against you. So what have I done? What evil is in my hand?" It's the very same speech in a way that Samuel gave to the congregation of Israel. "Speak now, bear witness before the Lord. What have I done to you to cause you to turn from me and seek after this king of your own choosing? This man king instead of the God king. What have I done?" So he says, "Now therefore, please let the Lord, my Lord the king, hear my words of his servant. If it's the Lord that stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. Let there be a sin offering. Let there be an offering for atonement against what I've done against you. If it's the Lord putting this on your heart to come after me, Let the Lord accept an offering so that we can be at peace. But if it's just people sowing seeds of discontentment, may they be cursed before the Lord, because they've driven me out from sharing the inheritance of the Lord. David's been shoved out of the promised land to live in the wilderness, essentially telling him to go serve other gods because he's not allowed to go to the temple, or not the tabernacle. He's not allowed to go before the ark. He's not allowed to go deliver sacrifices and meat for the prescribed feast days, as was the law. He's being driven out by the evil hearts of men, so he cannot take part in the religious rituals of the Jewish people of the time. So now, do not let my blood fall on the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to seek a flea, as when one hunts a partridge in the mountains. Say, almost kind of in a way what his now wife Abigail told him about Nabal. What is this person that you're going to hunt down and slaughter? You're going to spill his blood? You, this mighty man, are going to spill this fool's blood? David's kind of using the same thought process, the same words, like, Saul, you're the king of Israel. I'm just a guy hiding out in the wilderness. Why are you going to bring out an army against me? What can I do against you? Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will harm you no more, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Indeed, I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, Here is the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. He's saying, I've sinned, so return, come home. David, come home. I've erred. I've been wrong. I've done things before you that I should not have done. But David's saying, here's your spear. Let one of the young men, let one of your squires, one of your armor bearers, one of your runners or messengers come get the spear. Come get the water jug. And may the Lord repay every man for its righteousness and its faithfulness. Basically, let the Lord be the one to be judge between us, and the judge for every man who is sowing this discontentment. Every man that's been righteous and faithful, let the Lord reward that. But repay has a double side to it. You can reward as a way of repayment for loyalty. But for those sowing the discontentment, for the Ziphites, for those who are provoking Saul into violence against David, let them be repaid for the wickedness that they're bringing into the world. Let them be repaid for the vileness that they're bringing forth. And indeed, as your life was valued much this day in my eyes, so let my life be valued much in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. So Saul, as your life was valued by me, let my life not be valued in the eyes of you. Your life, Saul, was valued in the eyes of me, in my eyes. So let my life be valued as much in the eyes of God. Because he is where all deliverance flows from. He is where all righteousness comes from. He is where all salvation comes from. So let my life be valued in the eyes of the Lord. Then Saul said to David, May you be blessed, my son David. You shall both do great things and also still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Blessed be you, my son David, for not killing me as the way I would try to kill you if I had half a chance. Because make no mistake, if Saul came upon David in that same fashion, Saul would not have stayed Abner's hand. Abner would not have stayed Saul's hand. David would have been pinned to the earth, and his men would have found him dead. There would have been no second thoughts given. He would have died swiftly. And that's why the only value of our life that matters is the value it holds in the eyes of God. Even one who loves us as much as Saul once loved David, in their eyes, our value only goes so far. I love my wife. I love my children. So much do I love my children. But even with that love, the love the Lord has for me is so much greater. The love my Lord has for my children is so much greater than I could ever have that it's impossible to comprehend the level of love He has for them. So let our lives be valued in His eyes. Let us remember the value we have in His eyes, not the eyes of our neighbor, not the eyes of that guy who sits across from us at work or at church. Because as great as it is to be loved here, to be beloved here, to be cordial, to have those friendships, as great as it is there because it allows us a greater opportunity to minister in people's lives, the value we have and the value we see our own lives having, we need only look to the value that we have in the eyes of the Lord and let all the others be awash. Because as great as that is, it pales in comparison to the love of the Lord, a love we can't understand. Because as it's been said, written by Paul, I believe, unless it was in Hebrews, then we don't know. But a man could be willing to give his life up for another good man. Might even have been Jesus that said it. Now I've got myself all confused, trying to make a joke about Hebrews. But anyway, a man could give his life for a good man. Sometimes people will do that. Rare, but it'll happen. But the Lord gave His life for us while we were still sinners, still broken. He's willing to lay down His life for us then. That's the love and value we hold in the eyes of the Lord. That He willingly sent Himself to the cross. He willingly had Himself scourged so bad that He was rendered unrecognizable by the people when He was put forth by Pilate, saying, "This is actually the man Jesus. This is what we've done to Him. Are you sure we can't let Him go now? No, crucify Him too." That's what He was willing to suffer, that wrath. And that was only the physical wrath. That moment where sin comes upon Him and He is cut off from the Father. That moment, that wrath, that horrifying moment of him solely being cut off from God, from the Father, having that connection severed, that moment is something we are spared from ever having to experience if we submit ourselves to the authority of Christ and place our faith in him for salvation. That's the value we have. That is an incomprehensible value. One that will see us outside of all tribulation. Because the tribulation that we have to worry about is the tribulation that will come from the wages of our sin. And that is what we will be fully delivered out of if we are found righteous in the blood of Christ. That's the value. Incomprehensible value. But anyway, that's where we shall end it for this morning. I hope this was fruitful for you. I hope to see you back again next time. But until then, be blessed.